Thank you. I am so happy to be here to talk about how important SNAP benefits are to so many people in our state and the fact that we have changes and we need to make sure that people are up to date and aware of that. This has always been a major issue of mine that I'm concerned about. I was elected 20 years ago. I have sat on the Agriculture Committee since then, and it has always been so important to me to understand that Illinois is first and foremost an agricultural state, and the fact that we have people going hungry and people in need of food is something I want to see that we can do as much as we can to resolve the issue. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Leader Holmes. And my name is Maura Hernandez. I'm the state representative in the 50th district. I cover areas of Aurora, North Aurora, and Batavia. So thank you so much for joining us. This is a great conversation that we're going to have. And thank you to Rodolfo from the Greater Chicago Food Depository, who's going to be leading this conversation and being able to share his knowledge with everyone on what are the changes going to happen in the next few days. It's very important. And thank you to my colleagues for also joining us. This is a great joint event that we all came together to do this, and even invited Maria from Bill Foster's office, Congressman Foster's office. So I can't wait for the conversation, but I'll pass it on right now to Representative Hirschauer.
Thanks, Representative Hernandez, and a special thanks to you and your office for pulling us all together and getting us on here virtually with the Greater Chicago Food Depository. Because SNAP benefits and access to SNAP benefits is something that is so important to so many constituents in this Fox Valley, Aurora area that we all represent. And I think folks are, nervous about how they can go through the redetermination process, the paperwork required to prove the work requirements and the things that are coming down from the federal government. And I think what's important for our constituents to understand is that we are here to help you get the information you need and do all that we can to break down those barriers that are being put up right now by the federal government. They're trying to keep us from accessing the supports that we need, but here in Illinois, we're working together, the General Assembly and our partners, to make sure that you can get access and we can answer any questions. So I know everyone on this call will be available in the days and weeks to come to point you in the right direction when you have questions about redetermination and the paperwork required to access your SNAP benefits. With that, I will pass it to my neighbor partner, State Representative Matt Hanson.
Thank you, Rep. Hirschauer. Thank you, Rep. Hernandez, to you and your team for putting us together. I'll echo the sentiments of the earlier speakers. Like, we are here to do two things. That is to learn from the experts. Thank you, Greater Chicago, for doing this. The food banks in Illinois that supply needed nutrition and food security to 2,900 food banks. We're going to go to the experts on this one. For 60 years, SNAP benefits hadn't been interrupted, and there's a lot of changes taking place right now in front of us. And those of us that are here from our respective districts and our staffs are going to be here to help, not only on February 1st, but frankly, as other people realize that, okay, I know someone that went ahead and did the paperwork, they made the changes, and it's going to be okay. Or people that may not be here tonight that hear about changes a month or two down the line. We're going to become the closest we can to experts in how to help people with their paperwork, with requalifying, and then we're going to keep doing it and get better at it. I think change is scary for people that have taken their qualifications for these programs for granted. It should be that easy, but unfortunately, someone in an administration is making it much more difficult. But we're here to help. We're here to listen tonight and make sure that going forward that any one of our offices can help out someone you know. And if they happen to call the wrong state office, they'll help you, or we'll get you to the right state office too. So sometimes people don't know who the rep is. Maybe they never thought they would need us for this, but we're going to be here. Thank you.
Nestor, would you want to say anything?
Yeah, thank you so much, Representative Hernandez and Rodolfo, for setting this up. I'm here on behalf of State Senator Karina Villa, and I just want to say that SNAP benefits truly do protect our most vulnerable populations. And I'm just excited to have so many experts here to answer any of the questions our constituents here will have. And I hope that we all can leave you all leaving this conversation with a lot more knowledge and a lot more, maybe a little bit more structure because everything is a little bit hectic these days.
And I also do want to mention that Representative Kifowit is with us. She's in the audience. She has a bit of technical difficulty, but I also want to add that she was part of this joint conversation too. And at this point, I will pass it on to Maria from Congressman Bill Foster.
Thank you, Rep. Hernandez, and all the representatives, Senator, for being on tonight. And thank you, everybody who's joining us this evening. I know SNAP benefits are a lifeline for many families, and when people hear about the changes, it's very stressful and confusing. So I know our goal here tonight is to answer questions and to give you an update, let you know what's happening, the state reps and senators on a state level. My goal is to explain what's changing on a federal level, what's not changing, and why these updates happen. And just to make sure that you who are listening, who are in the audience, know where you stand. So I don't know if you want me to go into those updates, Representative, or if you guys want to talk about what's happening on the state level first.
Sure, you can go over the updates and then we can pass it on to Rodolfo.
Okay, so the biggest change that is starting on February 1st, which is just a couple weeks away, is the new federal work requirement. For some adults on SNAP, reporting work hours will now be required to keep receiving those benefits. This applies to adults without a disability and without dependents. So not everybody is affected. Many people are exempt from this requirement, and those exemptions include adults ages 65 and older, people with a certified disability that prevents them from working, people who are receiving or have applied for unemployment benefits, anyone who is enrolled in school at least part-time, pregnant women, and anybody who has a child under the age of 14 living at home. For people who are required to participate, they must complete at least 80 hours a month of work or a qualifying activity. So that does not have to be a traditional job. Paid work counts, but so does volunteer work and any approved job training programs. If someone does not meet these requirements or does not qualify for an exemption, they may be limited to receiving SNAP benefits for 3 months within a 3-year period. The important thing to know here is that benefits are not completely lost. So once you meet the work requirements, you're qualify for an exemption, then your SNAP benefits will continue. The other change that you may hear about is that states now have more flexibility in how SNAP benefits can be used. So states may now choose to place limits on certain purchases such as soda, junk food, or anything they may want to place limits on. These decisions are made on a state-by-state basis. So the rules may look different depending on where the person lives. Obviously, here in Illinois, our reps will let us know if any of those changes are being made. If changes are made, then the states are required to communicate that clearly before anything takes effect, which is what I believe is the goal of tonight's event, is to let you know what's changing and what's going to take effect in Illinois. There are also some really important things to know that are not changing. First of all, the SNAP benefits amounts will not be increasing in February, and that is because the recent cost of living adjustment took place in October of 2025, so this past October, which is when SNAP benefits are adjusted each year. So each year the benefits are adjusted in October, at the end of September, and you'll see that change October 1st. Second, SNAP itself is not going to go away. So SNAP is a mandatory federal program, meaning that benefit funding is set in law. So SNAP is a mandatory federal program. If you are eligible to meet the rules, then the benefits are still there for you. So some of these changes happen because SNAP is governed by federal law or a statute. Congress periodically updates those laws, which can lead to some changes. I think somebody earlier mentioned that change hadn't happened in 60 years. But now, changes are happening right now. So when those laws are updated, that can lead to changes in the requirements like we're seeing now, work requirements, or sometimes the program flexibility. SNAP amounts also, as I just mentioned a little bit ago, also change annually. And that's because the law requires the cost of living adjustment every October 1st. And a formula is used to account for those changes in food prices, which determines the benefit levels for the next year, which starts federally October 1st. And that's why you see that change happen at that time. So the cost of living adjustment is not going to be the same every year. It's going to be based on that formula. This year, delays in approving the administrative funding. Well, actually, let me go back. One of the important distinctions is how SNAP is funded. As I mentioned, the benefits themselves are mandatory, but the money used to run the program, so the administrative funding, that's what needs to be approved every year through the federal budget. This year, the delays in approving that funding is part of what caused that shutdown. So states were told that they could not issue benefits because the funding to operate the program had run out, even though the benefits themselves were required by law. So as we were like, wait, hold up. What do you mean, they can't be sent out? Yes, they can, because they're required by law to be sent out. The administrative funding had run out, and that's part of the fight for the shutdown. Recent federal changes, the big bill, big bill that passed, increased the share of SNAP costs to some states, so including here in Illinois. So this doesn't change the eligibility for participants, but it does affect how states manage and fund the program. So that was one of the changes also. So just in takeaway, just so that you know, SNAP is still there. Benefits are going to continue, but starting February 1st, some adults will now face the new work reporting requirements. And most people will actually not see a change, or will see very little change. So we know here that this can feel overwhelming. We just ask you to let people, if you know somebody who's receiving these benefits, let them know some of the changes are happening so they could look into it. Your state representatives, state senators are here to help. We're here to help you understand how these rules apply in your situation. So again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, state reps, senator, for hosting this.
Yeah, Maria. And we do have Representative Kifowit on the line now, if you want to say a quick word.
Thank you, Representative Hernandez and everybody on the panel. We're talking about such an important subject matter in making sure that SNAP benefits go to the people that need to go to, and food insecurity is just really rampant, and we got to just make sure that we're there for the individuals. So I just want to thank everybody on the panel, and I look forward to hearing all the great information for everybody. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. And Rodolfo, we'll pass it on to you for more detail.
Thank you so much, Representative. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here, and gratitude to all of our elected officials, members of the General Assembly, and of course, Maria from Congressman Foster's office for convening this meeting and gathering tonight. My name is Rodolfo de Jesus. I am the Director of Government Affairs at the Greater Chicago Food Depository. I'm going to be giving sort of a brief presentation. Some of it will include some of what Maria just touched on and some other items that have been mentioned by our legislators. But I want to give folks a broad sense of, one, the state of hunger in Illinois, the changes and implications of HR 1, the One Big Beautiful Bill, and then sort of what to look ahead to and resources that are available for everyone. So I will begin to share my screen. And it should pop up. There we go. The Greater Chicago Food Depository, we are officially the food bank for Cook County. Our mission, as written, is to end hunger and all the different ways that contribute to hunger and food insecurity in our communities. While we are the food bank for Cook County, we have a policy advocacy and community engagement team that works on a variety of legislative and advocacy policy priorities that have a vast impact not only on our specific communities and service area of Cook County, but throughout the state of Illinois. We work collaboratively across the state on these issues because everything contributes to hunger. Hunger does not look like just one thing and does not impact only one community or part of the state. And with that said, Feeding America, the national coalition of food banks, estimates that about 1 in 8 residents of the state of Illinois face hunger and experience some form of food insecurity. They tabulate that this means that these households, these individuals, would need roughly over $1 billion added to their food budget to afford adequate and necessary food in their life. So basically trying to get to the equivalent of close to 3 meals a day. Feeding Illinois is the local state alliance of food banks throughout the state of Illinois. There are 7 members, including ourselves, and then the Northern Illinois Food Bank, which serves the area and communities that you are in, that your legislators represent. We serve we have a network of close to over 2,600 pantries, soup kitchens, shelters, and specialized programs all throughout the state of Illinois. As I said already, hunger does not look like one particular thing. It impacts the entirety of our state, downstate, northern, central Illinois, southern Illinois, Cook, the suburbs, urban, rural. All of our communities are impacted by hunger, and we want to make sure that folks are aware that there are tremendous organizations all throughout the state working to help offer emergency food services and offer a lifeline to families in need of food. Closer to home for you all, the Northern Illinois Food Bank, our friends at the Northern Illinois Food Bank, their mission as well is to end hunger. They provide nutritious food and resources for neighbors with dignity, equity, and convenience through partnerships through their network. They have a network of over 900 food pantries, mobile markets, and soup kitchens. They serve 13 counties, including those that are within, that the Aurora community is within, and others nearby, basically sort of all the counties surrounding Cook. So they're our closest and next largest food bank in the state of Illinois with respect to the number of people and households that they serve. So just to kind of give folks a broad understanding of why SNAP matters, SNAP, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, known locally as Illinois Link EBT, supports close to 43 million Americans all throughout the country. In Illinois, that's about 2 million individuals on SNAP, about 1 million households alone. SNAP, as we saw recently with respect to the government shutdown, the conversation around it as a food program kind of that sort of took away from the fact that SNAP is also an economic multiplier. Economists estimate that for every $1 of SNAP spent in the local economy, it generates about $1.50. Because you're talking about anywhere that Link EBT SNAP is accepted, that's funds that are going into those businesses, whether that's big grocery stores, small corner stores, family-owned grocery stores, farmers markets, anywhere where those funds are accepted, that is generating money into the local economy. It's allowing people to feed their households, to put food on their tables, food in their refrigerators, and then it allows them the opportunity then to buy the other essential items they may need, like toiletries, baby formula, diapers, things of that nature. So having SNAP as a resource to purchase their food generates money in our local economy. It's an economic boom. It's something that helps our communities and it helps our local businesses. I did a little bit of back of the napkin math prior to our presentation tonight to see that amongst the districts of the legislators on the call represented here that are our hosts, there are close to 60,000 SNAP recipients in these districts alone. That is, a tremendous part of your community. These are your neighbors, family, friends, yourselves. And so, again, as I mentioned, SNAP recipients throughout the state of Illinois, they're in all parts of the state, all parts of the district, which is why opportunities like this are so critically important. The last thing I'll share for this slide is that the emergency food system is just that. It's for emergencies. So us, the Northern Illinois Food Bank, for every one meal we can provide, SNAP as a program offers the opportunity for folks to provide 9 for their households. So that is a significant gap with respect to the number of meals that are lost when we don't have a program like SNAP. That is the number of meals that were lost when we saw SNAP being paused in November as part of the shutdown. That is a tremendous gap that no food bank, soup kitchen, pantry in the country can replace. We at the Food Depository and the Northern Illinois Food Bank are some of the largest in the country. And it's almost like asking for each organization to almost triple or quadruple in size or ability to serve. And we already serve and offer our networks, millions of pounds of food a year. So we always point that out to show that SNAP is an incredibly vital and effective program at helping to feed people. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which Maria referenced, the Federal Budget Reconciliation Bill, which passed on July 4th of last year, included some of the largest cuts to SNAP and Medicaid in the history of either program, potentially risking food access and healthcare for millions of folks in this country. We anticipate that need for food assistance as a result of the combination of cuts to these two programs will surge. And as I just shared, the 1-to-9 ratio, food banks and pantries are not currently equipped to fill this gap and realistically could not. It is, a program and an initiative that is federally funded, and then its existence has always been federally funded. And as I've already shared, loss of SNAP benefits will impact local economies everywhere. You're talking about less money being spent at grocery stores, fewer jobs being produced, and less food produced. Since the passage of the bill, we've had an opportunity to have conversations with locally owned grocery stores and some larger chains, mid to larger size chains, and they've shared that SNAP accounts in some cases for almost a third of their business. And if they were to lose that, they would have to make that up in one of two ways, either by headcount reduction, by laying off staff potentially, or by raising their prices. Two things that would be economically devastating and horrible for our communities. So again, just wanting to emphasize that there is a human impact to SNAP benefits, but there is also an economic one. Some of the big bullet changes as a result of the bill. It does everything from increasing state cost requirements to unprecedented levels in the history of the program. It bars many legally present immigrants from applying for SNAP. It eliminates the SNAP nutrition education program. It expands work requirements. And I will touch on some of these and dive a little bit deeper into some of these changes, but just kind of for a big picture scan of where we are as a state. The state of Illinois, as I mentioned, has nearly 2 million residents on SNAP. That includes nearly 650,000 children. There's an expected to see a decrease of the value of their benefits over time. We have about 211,000 recipients of SNAP at risk of losing benefits due to the work reporting requirements that I'm going to touch on in a moment. And then we have close to 16,000 lawfully present immigrants. This population includes refugees, asylees, immigrant survivors of domestic violence and sex trafficking, who potentially will lose risk as well starting April 1st. And I'll dive in as well to that one. And then the maintenance of SNAP benefits in the future, starting in 2027 and beyond, could cost the state hundreds of millions of dollars. So the 3 items that I will touch on will include the changes to the work reporting requirements, the impact to our legally present immigrant community, and the shifting of costs onto states. So the most urgent change that we see happening on February 1st is the shifting of the work reporting requirements. Many SNAP customers, well, I should preface by saying work requirements have always been a part of the SNAP program since the reform of the social safety net in the 90s. However, a state the size of Illinois has had a variety of exemptions that they've been able to utilize to not necessarily have to have our SNAP population worry about it as much, including everything from our unemployment rate and then a variety of exemptions that we've had for our counties throughout the state of Illinois. However, we're losing many of those exemptions. And starting February 1st now, we will see a significant shift in terms of the population that are able-bodied adults who will now have to worry about fulfilling this requirement. So what's changed is that now adults ages 18 to 64 must report any of the following for at least 80 hours a month to continue receiving their SNAP benefits. And this can be in combination. So to meet the work requirements, the person must work, paid or unpaid, participate in a SNAP employment and training program, volunteer, or any of the combination of the above. we say who is impacted is that previously individuals between the ages of 54 to 64 did not have to fill this requirement. They will now as of February 1st, unless they have an exemption. Individuals with families with children older than 14, so teenagers, traditional teenagers, once upon a time it used to be up to the age of 18. Veterans who used to be formerly exempt, former foster youth, people experiencing homelessness, now, unless they apply for an exemption, will have to meet these 80 hours a month requirement. It averages out to about 20 hours a week, but really the requirement, broadly speaking, is 80 hours a month. And however that is made up, reporting that to IDHS. The hard part is that failure to meet these requirements could result in a loss of benefits for up to 3 years. Individuals essentially have 3 months in which they cannot be fulfilling these requirements before they start to lose benefits. But once they lose benefits, they cannot return to receive them until they fulfill those requirements. So you're talking about potentially folks losing benefits as early as May 1st if they don't hit these 80-hour requirements in the next several months between February, March, and April. With respect to the work requirements, I do want to share the exemptions that still exist. And there are several, and these exemptions are ones that folks in resources and links that I'll share a little bit later in the presentation should begin to apply for if they qualify and if they have them. A person is exempt if they are under the age of 18 or older than the age of 65, have a physical or mental limitation that impacts their ability to work, including experiencing chronic homelessness and other barriers, if they are pregnant, if they are living in a SNAP household with a child under the age of 14, if they are members of certain indigenous communities, including Alaskan Native, American Indian, American Urban Indian, if they're residing in a waived exempt county, caring for a child under the age of 6, going to school, college, or a training program at least half time. That time is decided by the institution in which they are enrolled in. Meeting the work rules for a program such as TANF, which is the Temporary Needs Assistance Program for families, if they're receiving unemployment benefits or applied for unemployment benefits, participating in alcohol or drug treatment program. So there are still a variety of exemptions that folks can apply for. And in many of these cases, the Illinois Department of Human Services has already reached out to some of these populations, which they had the data to know that they qualify for these exemptions and have already kind of put them in the system as they are exempt. The key here is that though folks should double check this status with IDHS if they are within the ages of 18 to 65 or 64, I should say, just to make sure that they are fulfilling an exemption for work reporting requirements or are then looking to figure out ways to fulfill those work reporting requirements. The second change that I wanted to kind of dive into a little bit was the immigrant eligibility change. As early as April 1st, I say as early as April 1st because it won't be necessarily in one fell swoop what this change will happen, but eligibility will begin to change and severely limit SNAP access for approximately 16,000 legally present immigrants. So these are folks who are refugees, asylees, humanitarian parolees, so folks who entered the United States because of an emergency or crisis that they were facing in their home country and came here seeking safety and security. These individuals were formerly the only immigrants that were able to apply for SNAP benefits. There was mischaracterizations of a program such as SNAP being available for folks who are very grossly classified or called illegal in terms of their status here in our country. That has never been the case. There was only a really small population, and these are folks who have experienced some of the harshest traumatic experiences and that you can imagine, and have traveled to great lengths and gone to great lengths to seek, again, safety here in our country. And these individuals who, again, once were eligible for SNAP benefits have now been removed and will start to be cycled off the program starting April 1st, depending on when their redetermination is. So this includes individuals who are refugees, again, asylees, T visa holders, humanitarian parolees, and members of certain Southeast Asian states and Pacific Islander states. The last big shift that I kind of want to touch on or speak to is the shifting of costs to states. Well, there's two things. starting October of this year, October of 2026, SNAP, as I mentioned, as a federally funded program, and has been so since the late 60s, since its creation, with respect to the cost of its benefits. The administrative costs of the program have historically and traditionally been split 50-50 between states and the federal government. Starting October of this year, states will be expected to take on an additional 25% of the administrative costs of the SNAP program, shifting it from a 50-50 split to a 75-25 split onto the state. That change alone will look close to maybe 80 to $100 million extra dollars a year that the state of Illinois will be expected to pay to administer the program. And on top of that, come October of 2027, states with an error rate fitting in any one of those ranges, whether that is 10% or higher, 8 to 10%, 6 to 8%, or less than 6%, will either be expected to pay as high as 15% towards the cost of benefits or nothing if their error rate is below 6%. Now, what I'll touch on very briefly with respect to the error rate is that it is not indicative of waste, fraud, and abuse. It is essentially a classification for potentially administrative errors and application mistakes. The SNAP application is very, very intensive. It involves calculating numerous aspects of a family's household and an individual's household that are applying for SNAP. The error rate is tabulated based off of if there are over and under payments to someone's SNAP benefits, if they're shifting month to month. That can happen. For example, the holiday season, folks sometimes tend to receive more hours if they're working at like a big box store, for example. If they don't account for that quickly enough, they may receive more benefits that month than they should have. There is a mechanism by which the federal government and the state does recoup that money. So that's not funds that are lost. And similarly, if someone receives an underpayment of SNAP, those benefits are made up the following month as well. So again, not indicative of waste, fraud, and abuse, but it was a number that has a name such as error rate, and it, therefore kind of has this branding that it is intrinsically then bad or negative or something that's being done wrong, for example, by states. Now, a state the size of Illinois, with close to 2 million folks on SNAP, has a rather large error rate relative to other states. Our error rate for federal fiscal year 2024, for example, was 11.56. That would put us in the category then having to pay 15% towards the cost of benefits. In 2024, the state of Illinois received close to $4.8 billion, $4.8 billion in federal benefits for SNAP, meaning that we would have to pay close to $705 million. So if everything were to stay the same, the state would be expected to contribute over $700 million come October of 2027 in order to keep SNAP benefits coming in. Legal experts are still kind of exploring this, debating this, and trying to figure this out. But based on the way the law is written, if any state for that matter is unable to fulfill their contribution towards the cost of benefits come October of 2027, there becomes a risk that we lose the program at that time. I'm sure, as with many things in recent years, that'll be contested at the court level, but it's a situation where there's no guarantees for how things will go in the next couple of years. But we know, sort of based on the way the law is written, what has changed or not changed in the last couple of months, that this is definitely something that obviously naturally concerns us, because it puts a tremendous great strain on the state of Illinois for a program that, again, since its inception, has been federally funded with respect to the cost of its benefits. And we risk losing billions in federal benefits coming into our state if we're unable to meet this demand potentially. I just wanted to also mention that the state of Illinois has made tremendous investments. The Illinois Department of Human Services has gone to great lengths to try to bring down its error rate. But again, it can be as simple as making a mistake on your application, on your redetermination. And I know they're doing everything within their power to lower our error rate, but understanding that a state of our size, it's not that easy. The states who are under 6% have usually a vastly smaller population and a vastly smaller population on SNAP. So what's next in resources? There are a number of opportunities right now with respect to receiving resources and support in applying for SNAP benefits if folks are available and qualify for SNAP. It is a federally funded program. It is an entitlement. Individuals should apply for SNAP if they qualify for SNAP. And we encourage folks to always apply for the program while it's here, while it's available, because again, it's an effective tool to help feed our families. For individuals, neighbors currently receiving SNAP, we're encouraging them to take these steps by February 1st and honestly beyond. February 1st is not the end of this messaging campaign and this effort. We need folks to report any changes to their income or household status to the Illinois Department of Human Services. They need to determine if you need to meet new work requirements or if you're exempt. They need to share this information with their family and friends or anyone they know that might be on SNAP, Link, EBT. And then we have resources available online at saveoursnap.org. You can also scan this QR code. This slide deck will be shared with the legislators and offices on the call, leading our call that convened it. And so that way they can share it with constituents and make it available via their own websites, social media, etc. So these resources will be made available to all the folks who attended this briefing and beyond. But saveoursnap.org is a great resource and first stop to just kind of help navigate these changes and figure out where to go to next. You can also, everyone, of course, can also work directly with the Illinois Department of Human Services. We're encouraging folks to complete what is referred to as the ABE SNAP Work Requirements Screener that the state has created so that folks have an easy and accessible way to find out if they have existing exemptions to work reporting requirements. They can also check their status if they are current SNAP recipients under their case portal for SNAP medical and other benefits on abe.illinois.gov. They can also call the Illinois Department of Human Services service line, which is 1-800-843-6154, or visit their local DHS office. And then, of course, also contacting your local state representative, state senator, to make sure that navigating you and getting you to the right place with respect to IDHS and the state agency to make sure that, again, your information is up to date, that IDHS is aware if you have an exemption, or then making sure to figure out then best ways to connect to resources to find ways to fulfilling the 80-hour requirements. I also wanted to share some resources from the Northern Illinois Food Bank, your local food bank that serves your communities in your area. The Northern Illinois Food Bank website has a Find Food Map. This is an incredibly helpful resource and tool that'll show you any one of our food access sites throughout the state of Illinois, not only for Northern's service area, but for ours, for Southern Illinois. So anywhere you are in the state of Illinois, if you punch in an address, location, zip code, it'll show you the nearest accessible sites for food access. It'll show you their operating hours, a main point of contact, etc. So for anyone who's in need of emergency food services, you can use the Find Food Map at solvehungertoday.org. That's the Northern Illinois Food Bank's website, and you can find food resources there. They also offer SNAP support, so they have a support line at 844-600-7627, where folks can call during working hours from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday to receive support in navigating changes to SNAP or navigating the application process. They can also schedule appointments online at solvehungertoday.org. Lastly, I just want to mention that part of opportunities like tonight give us a chance to really talk about that. So much of what we saw during the pausing of SNAP benefits in November was really sort of the response. And that was the response of our communities, the response of our food pantries, food banks, our legislators, our local elected officials, who really rallied around the idea that we needed to continue to support our communities during that difficult time where they were essentially deprived of benefits that they are legally entitled to. And so we want to make sure that folks understand that they should connect, share these resources, share this information out, and make sure that their neighbors know, community-based organizations, advocates, anyone within your orbit, just to make sure to share this message out far and wide. And with that, we have a community outreach toolkit available on these changes. You can click on scan the QR code right there, or go to endhungerillinois.org or saveoursnap.org. There you'll find additional resources in terms of how to navigate these changes, how to share information about how to navigate these changes. The resources are available in English and Spanish. and it'll help kind of steer you in the right direction and the most reliable information that's available at the state level with respect to the Illinois Department of Human Services. And with that, I thank you all so much, and I will stop sharing my screen here.
Thank you, Rodolfo. It looks like we
Sure.
do have a few questions in the chat.
Mhm. Yes, so I see. Yes, so someone asked if the slides be shared. Yes, yes, the slides will be shared. And there was a question with respect to applications for a child using their parents. No, that's not incorrect. So a child who is a United States citizen, they can apply for benefits. Every aspect, the SNAP, as I mentioned, the SNAP application process is very involved. Our benefits enrollers, we have staff here at the Food Depository who help folks navigate the SNAP application process. They estimate it takes anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour to complete a SNAP application online. Every aspect of a household has to be accounted for in order to determine someone's SNAP eligibility and benefits. So that accounts into all benefits that might be encompassed into a household and all individuals existing within a household. So those are the aspects. So not necessarily. No, children can apply for benefits, but the individual applying for those benefits on their behalf, they do need to present information. And as I mentioned, individuals who have been classified as being undocumented have not been eligible for SNAP in the history of its program. Individuals who were here in legally present status could apply for SNAP or apply for other similar food support benefits programs, like VTTC, for example. So those were the populations that could, but no, not you can't apply for, a child can't apply on behalf of their parents. They would only be able to apply for themselves or their household individually, and everything would be, all factors of that household will be taken into account with that application. And then I saw a question in the chat as well. Are people that are pending SSI exempt, or do they have to meet work requirements? They should be exempt. Individuals receiving Social Security benefits or other benefits should be exempt from work reporting requirements, but they should verify that and double check that with IDHS and their case manager, or at a local IDHS office, or online, or by calling IDHS's hotline. They most likely may have already been classified as being exempt from work reporting requirements, but it doesn't hurt to double check to make sure, so that way they don't have to worry about it beyond and not risk losing benefits. I see another question. What advice would you share with higher education institutions who may have students impacted by these changes, pursue part-time enrollment? That is a great question. I know that many of our institutions of higher education throughout the state operate not necessarily spaces that they would traditionally call pantries, but more like resource centers or opportunity centers for their student population to offer them food resources and opportunities. I know that's something that we at the Food Depository have piloted with our local community college network, the City Colleges of Chicago. It's challenging. I would encourage or support them to look for every available opportunity to fulfill the requirements, maybe potentially by looking at the volunteer option. And what I'll say about the volunteer option, that again is a testament to the state of Illinois and the empathy of the Illinois Department of Human Services to use as much latitude as possible and give as much grace as possible to individuals who are trying to utilize volunteerism as a way of fulfilling the work requirement, is that they will be utilizing a process called self-attestation, where the individual can attest and fill out a form indicating how they're fulfilling their requirements, whether via working, paid or unpaid, or by their volunteerism. So that, again, can also help to meet those work reporting requirements. I would encourage any institution of higher education, if they have the capacity to collaborate and work with their local food banks, for example, to maybe also try to find and identify ways to provide some on-campus food resources. I know that that's been one avenue and tool that we've utilized here locally in Cook County, and I would encourage that as well in any of the other institutions, which I know, again, some of them do offer resources like that for their student population. While they navigate this with respect to then if they potentially are losing benefits then as well. To host that, so there was a question with respect to requirements to host a food pantry on a college campus. I can't speak to that process entirely. I know it is involved, and it's not necessarily a quick and easy thing. But I would advise or guide that the first step would be really having that conversation and opening up that conversation with your local food bank. If you're within the service area of any of the legislators here hosting this call, again, that would be the Northern Illinois Food Bank. If you are further west along the Mississippi River on our border with Iowa, that is the Riverbend Food Bank. If you are in central Illinois by Springfield, that's the Central Illinois Food Bank. If you are closer along the borders of Indiana on the eastern end, that is the Eastern Illinois Food Bank. If you are in southern Illinois, bordering St. Louis, that is St. Louis Food Bank. And if you are bordering our border with Indiana, Kentucky, that is the Tri-State Food Bank. So any of those institutions would be a great first step of trying to kind of have that conversation and working towards establishing a food pantry if you needed to operate one on campus. And then I'm seeing, so while my apologies to everyone that I was not able to offer this presentation in Spanish while I'm bilingual. My bilingual skills are limited based on with respect to these topics, I should be honest and frank with. But I know that obviously there are Spanish speakers and individuals who are bilingual in many of the offices here and the offices represented, and that there are resources online. On IDH's website, there are resources available in multiple languages, including Spanish, Chinese, Tagalog, Polish. There are resources there that can be found, and they themselves, the Illinois Department of Human Services, has translating services. So when you call in or you go into their offices, they have that available as well. And then there's a question with respect to how should families answer the question about members of their family being put in danger by sharing info with other states. So from my understanding, that information is not being shared out publicly. I know there was an effort to force states like Illinois to share information. That did not happen. I know legal action was taken by the Attorney General's office. So again, we feel confident about the nature and intention of the Illinois Department of Human Services and the state of Illinois, who has done a tremendous job of protecting its residents in the state, regardless of their status, and really protecting their data and their information and their privacy as well. So again, we do encourage folks to apply for benefits if they feel that they qualify for them, and then to continue the redetermination process, to work with their their benefits enrollment managers, to work with IDHS locally here to see then and continue utilizing their resources and their benefits. Should recipient information be updated, even if their case doesn't need revision yet? I would just check. We're truly encouraging folks to check in with their caseworker, their management worker, or with IDHS in general, just to make sure that they're okay in terms of their status with respect to if they need to be fulfilling these work requirements or if they're exempt. It doesn't hurt to double check to make sure. Again, the risk there is that if folks do need to fulfill these requirements, or if IDHS is not aware that they have a current existing exemption, qualifying exemption, that after 3 months, they potentially will risk losing benefits. And the challenge there is they cannot get those benefits back until they begin to fulfill those 80 hours. So there's only essentially the equivalent of a 3-month grace period to not be fulfilling these work reporting requirements before benefits are lost. That is a challenge there. That's what we're trying to avoid. That's why we will continue to offer opportunities like this, working in collaboration with our legislative members of the Illinois General Assembly, the state and our federal leaders, our local municipality leaders, to just kind of continue to share this message out so that folks are aware of these changes and sharing opportunities like this, again, continuing in the next several months. Sorry, I apologize, everyone. I'm reading a question, but there was a question with respect to, does it require the full SNAP application to be completed? No. So there is a form. There's a one-page form that folks can now access on IDHS's website to fill out to show how they're fulfilling the work reporting requirements. That it's a one-page form. I won't refer to it as simple, but there's a one-page form on IDHS's website that's available that can be found through their page, and that is the form that folks will need to fill out and submit to IDHS. They don't have to complete the entirety of the SNAP application form. That would only be in the case of if you are a new SNAP applicant and you are fulfilling out your paperwork in that regard. Thank you all so much for these questions. They're incredibly helpful because they give us also opportunities and pause to think sort of behind the scenes with respect to our team, if there's opportunities or things that need to be addressed or spoken with to about the state. Oh, we have one more question. Apologies. Yes. So there was a question with respect to if someone they're not able to find or access work or volunteer opportunities, but they are a child care provider by default of taking care of the child of a family member that can qualify. It would just have to be reported to IDHS. The number of hours would have to be reported to IDHS and can be the self-attestation allows you to utilize a letter of support from the individual whose child you are helping to take care of in that instance, along with then the application, the one-page form that IDHS has on its website. That self-attestation, again, is probably the easiest way that some folks can fulfill these requirements, because the reality is the vast majority of folks who are on SNAP are already working in some way, shape, or form. But the challenge would be then just again hitting those 80 hours, right? We're in a very difficult economic time. And so I think that challenge can be not every month will look the same. I, for myself, once upon a time worked at a big box store, and my hours weren't necessarily a matter of that. They weren't my decision, right? I didn't get to choose how many hours I worked necessarily. It was a decision of my supervisors, and that was the same for me and all of my colleagues at the time. So, people are trying to work, they're trying to support themselves, their family, and their livelihood. But, it's not always that simple with respect to just working 80 hours a month, for example. We can be employed and still not hitting those requirements. So yes, self-attestation with respect to volunteer opportunities does help. The application, I will make sure to share it with the representatives' offices, so that way when resources are shared out, that can be shared out as well and linked as well. Yes, individuals who are TANF participants most likely would be exempt from the work reporting requirements, but they, again, would just need to verify that with IDHS directly, just to make sure that there's no risk to their benefits. Thank you all again so much. I will pass the mic. I think that's all the questions. So I will pass the mic back to Leader Holmes and Representative Hernandez.
I just want to say thank you so much for doing this. It's been extremely informative, and it will certainly help our offices to make sure that everybody who contacts us gets the necessary information. This is so vitally important. So thank you. Barbara, thank you so much for setting this up. It is truly a godsend for people out there. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining once again, and thank you to my colleagues and also Maria from Bill Foster's office and Rodolfo for doing all of this, giving us updates. Can't wait to send this all to them again, send them all the slides that you sent us and the video in case you want to share with everyone. But just keep us in contact, everyone. If you need any help or anything, feel free to reach out to us, to all of us, if you need anything. But we can reach out to the department, and here in Illinois, or we can reach out to our congressperson also and seek some help. So thank you once again, and hopefully everyone has a good night and be safe.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Stay warm. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.